You're listening to the Wrestleview Radio Network.
Well, speaking of that, the second book and the first book, the first one really generated a ton of buzz last year. I mean, people from Jim Cornette all the way to Stone Cold Steve Austin singing its praises. I've read the book twice, and I've said this to you a couple times, and I think Jim Cornette kind of echoed this too, where when you read the book and you go chapter to chapter, you kind of lose yourself in it because you describe it in such a fashion where it almost feels like, and I think Jim said this to you too, where it feels like I hear your voice in my head as I'm reading it. It's as if you recorded it on tape or CD, and I'm listening to it on tape as you're telling these stories. It just flows so beautifully, and I think that's one of the reasons why that book stands out from a lot of others, where they kind of, they'll tell stories, but they're very vague, but you're kind of just saying, hey, this is what happened, here's all the details, and like I said, everybody from Jim Cornette to Stone Cold Steve Austin were very, very high in the book, so that had to make you feel pretty good, too.
Well, it's not something that I work at. It's just, I guess I talk. Jimmy's told me the same thing. He says, when I was reading the book, I hear your voice behind it. He said, it's not like my voice in my head. I hear your voice telling the story to me, and it's almost like I'm sitting right across from you in a car or on a plane or just, at around a table or wherever we could be. But I hear your voice describing it. And I appreciate the kind words that I describe it in such detail that you feel as though you're almost there, which I think is, like I said, nothing that I work at. I think it's just a gift that I have. But I'm glad I got it, and I'm glad the people enjoyed the book. I may have told you last time that when you write something like that, it was my first venture out into writing a book. I've wrote columns, and I wrote this, and I wrote that, but never something that's going to take you 270 pages or 300 pages, because that's really an ambitious project, really, when you sit down and you try to put all that together. But when you write something like that, you're writing blind. Now, I think I wrote this book with the sole purpose in mind that I'm writing for wrestling fans. I kind of know my market. I kind of know what wrestling fans want to hear. I kind of know that what they will relate to, because I've talked to hundreds of thousands of them. And a wrestling fan, they just, they all have different ideas and different thoughts, but they still basically, we all share the same thing. It's a love for professional wrestling.
The last time we had talked was in November of 2009, and at that moment was the big announcement that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff were signing with TNA. We didn't know so much about what Bischoff's role was going to be, but Hulk Hogan was obviously at the center of the attention. Didn't really kick in until January of this year when everything started happening. I don't know how closely you followed anything, if you watched anything, because I know you said sometimes you watch and sometimes you don't, but given how you used to be there, backstage, setting the pace for creative, basically had been there since day one in 2002 up until 2009. What is your take on kind of getting that perspective outside of that, watching what they did 1 year later with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and everybody they brought in?
Well, the company I left in 2009 is damn sure not the company I see today. If I actually went back tomorrow, I wouldn't recognize anything, to tell you the truth. Everything would change, and it's just, and what I expected out of Hulk and what I expected out of Bischoff was actually more than what they've produced, to tell you the truth. Because I think Hulk came in full of fire and brimstone, and he was going to turn the company around. And but it hasn't. It's in the, to me. It's you look at the numbers. It's in the same place it was when I left. So I think what they did, they just changed one team for another, and for the good. I don't think so. They may say so. I hope so. I have nothing against TNA. It's a profession I chose. Wrestling business was a profession I chose. I just happened to end up in creative, and creative is like joining the coaching staff. But I do think our one-loss record when I was there may have been better than the one-loss record they have now.